South Berwick. And Cheryl, I appreciated that pause. I don't know if people noticed that. That was very professional. That's where we put the music in, so that was great. And I have been looking forward to this show for weeks, and all day I've just been so happy because it is our pleasure and our honor to have Adora on tonight from Redmond, Washington. You're in Redmond tonight,
Yes,
right, Adora?
I am in my house. Yep.
Yeah, so we are so excited. And Adora, I'm going to let you just introduce yourself as much as you want to tell us about it, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. Well, my name's Adora and there's a few different things I guess I would want to point out when I introduce myself. The first thing is I'm 12 years old. I'm a student. I'm turning 13 this October, though, and definitely my caring about education has always been one of the things that's most important to me because I am a student, but also because I'm an educator and I talk to other students about reading and writing. That really happened after I published my first book, Flying Fingers. So I would say that I really have a few different titles, student, teacher, as well as writer, that are all equally important to me.
That's awesome. And I didn't want to ask your age because I don't want to be ageist, but I'm glad you said that because at some point people will ask, well, how old is this person? So you wrote your book. How old were you when you wrote Flying Fingers?
I was 7 when I wrote Flying Fingers, and it was a collection of short stories. So, yeah, I mean, people are like, that's a big accomplishment for 7, but I really want to emphasize that I've met people who I think they would have that equal ability at 7 or 8. So I think that, yeah, it's I was really privileged to be able to do that at a young age.
And I first met you, along with my daughter Zoe, down at Building Learning Communities in Boston with the Yellow November group. And you were our keynote there. And we got to know you there. And then we saw you out in Washington because you put on the TEDx Redmond. And we'd love to hear you talk about that, which is just a major accomplishment and continues to just be amazing with the videos coming out. So if you could tell us how that all started. Well, first I guess you got to talk about TED, huh?
Sure. Well, yeah, because it's really difficult. I think it would be kind of impossible to talk about the TEDx events without mentioning TED. For one thing, it would make saying them a little hard. X Redmond. But the TED event, it's a very prestigious conference in California, and it has the world's leading thinkers and doers. Its logo is ideas worth spreading, and so they get people from really all different fields. Technology, entertainment, and design is what they originally stood for, but now they're getting all kinds of people from science, from writing, from all fields to come and speak about the issues that matter to them. And so they have that conference every year. And now what they've launched is the independently organized TED events, or TEDx events. And I see a lot of those happening all around the world, and I really want to start one for kids. So that was how TEDx Redmond came about.
They've really taken off. Now, how did you end up at TED? Because I've never actually asked you that. I don't know.
A lot of how I happened to TED, it was partially, and it was a few different things. I had really loved to watch the videos for a long time. I think a lot of people have watched the videos. Are those the dogs? Who knows? Maybe they've been. Maybe they've been secretly watching TED videos and are giving their approval. But I think that a lot of it, I was really motivated. I wanted to speak there because I'd seen what a huge forum it was, and I wanted to reach the next level as far as spreading my message. I really wanted to reach that kind of audience, and so I would call them up and let them know who I was. And about 2 weeks before their conference in California, then they were like, hey, you want to come and speak? And obviously I did. So it was a lot of luck in that they really listened to those messages and what I told them, and they called me back.
So is there a number that you called? Could we all have that number? No,
I prefer to keep that confidential.
Let them know about you then.
Yes, because I really, really wanted to speak there. And I wasn't even thinking that I would speak in California. I was thinking maybe TED Global because the one in California was like a month away, and it was so soon. I assumed that they'd already have all their speakers. But it ended up I don't know if they just had room for one more speaker, and so they called me up.
Wow, that's amazing. And if people have not seen Adora's talk at TED, it'll be in our show notes. In fact, I'll try to get it into the chat room in a moment. And it truly is amazing. And Alice, you may not know this if you're back. I think Cheryl does. But in Computer Lab, this was so cool, Adora, and I sent you the pictures. I had a few minutes left with the students, and I gave them the choice of a game or to watch your keynote, and 100% of the students chose the keynote. And I went around, I took pictures of the back of their heads watching this, and it was just so wonderful. And then after I said, "So what'd you think? What'd you think?" And they were just like, wow, that was so incredible. They were really moved by it. And they've been kind of watching the journey of TEDx Redmond with me. And they haven't seen the videos yet, Adora, but they know they're coming, and they're very excited and very inspired by the whole experience. So you left TED and came up with the idea of a student TEDx out in Redmond. Can you talk about how that came together, and how do you pull off such an event?
Sure. And actually, quickly, I just want to get back on those pictures. I forwarded them to some people at TED, and they were like, incredible. This is, that's exactly what they want to happen. And as far as the student TEDx, I definitely think that the support of TED was something that's very important, because they are trying to get into schools and apply to a youth audience. And that was one of the things that motivated me, was I didn't see enough other kids at conferences. It's great hanging out with adults for 3 or 4 days, but I would love to see some other kids sometimes too. And so TEDx Redmond was kind of like a huge party for me. It involved a lot of planning, a lot of people I knew I would love to see, and definitely the planning side was one of the most important. I mean, anyone who's run a conference knows it's a lot of work goes into it, and unfortunately for us, a lot of that work happened to be last-minute work, but I think that we did a fairly good job in getting in recruiting some really good people for our committee. We had some very smart people, as well as for our speakers. And one of the challenges that I had at first was thinking, who are we going to have to speak? Because I was thinking, well, there's kind of, we want some really well-spoken, really smart kids. And originally I was a little bit reserved in how many we would find, because I knew there's a lot of potential out there, but I wasn't sure how many we'd find. But then once we started searching, then it was just, I was totally blown away by how many kids there are out there who have just given speeches and really love these opportunities.
And there's a real range of topics and, where people are at, and the ages were 10 to 16, am I right?
Yes, 10 to 16.
Yeah, definitely. And just so you know, talking to people, they were blown away by how well it was run that day. So many parents were saying, this is incredible. I can't believe that, how well this is running, and everybody, was fed at the evening, and, it's just an amazing day. So you totally pulled it off. I don't always hear that at conferences, but...
Thank you. I mean, it's my first experience running a conference, and I think that there's definitely a lot of things I've learned, but this is something where I'm very lucky that I've been able to attend so many conferences, because it's given me that point of view, this is what I can do better, this is maybe something that I've learned from a conference that they did well, so yeah, that's helped.
And I'll be quiet in a moment, Cheryl and Alice, and let you get in here. But one thing that, you mentioned earlier, like going to conferences, and it'd be nice to see some kids, and I think a bunch of us have been saying that for a while. Where are the students, when we go to these conferences and we're talking about the new, tools in classrooms, or how pedagogy has changed, etc. It's where's the student representation? And what was so interesting at Building Learning Communities was you were there, Zoe was there, there were some high school students that Kern Kelly had brought, and it was really like you folks were the commodity. Everybody wanted to talk to the students, all of you, as if they'd never seen students before, and this is a group that works, with students, but it really was like, it was amazing, because they really wanted to hear your opinion and your take on it. And even, Kern did a whole reflective movie with his kids about like their take on it. And so going to TEDx and having it completely student orientated, and if people don't know, Students totally put it together, only student presenters, and only students were allowed in the main room, right?
Yes.
Adora, I understand some adults snuck in, and I found out about that, but and I really applauded that. I think that was just amazing that it was just total student run, and that you could pull it off. So for me, and I want to talk a little bit about this sort of like what I'm seeing a lot this year is I believe is a tipping point on many levels, and I could be wrong. This could be my perception, but I wanted to ask you, there's been other youth conferences, but I think that TEDx Redmond has had such a splash. Is this a year where like the name of the conference, Power to the Students, do you see this really coming to the forefront nationally with some of the conversation that's happening around education?
I think to some extent it is. I think that we're definitely seeing it become more. I've heard the word trade around more. Youth voice, more power for students. But at the same time, I don't think it's right now gotten in too many places beyond the level of kind of the abstract concept, because I haven't seen a lot of examples of schools that are actually giving students a lot of real authority or a lot of real voice in deciding where their learning is going. Because I go to a lot of schools, and it's most of the time it's still the fairly old system, still the fairly same way of learning. So while it's definitely being talked about more, and I think that's great, we need to have discussion, I don't see it really being implemented or tested out on the more tangible level.
So it's just my pipe dream, I guess.
Well, no, I think right now since there's so much conversation, so much buzz about it, I think that right now we're in a position to push it forward. We're in a position to try to implement it to put more trust in students, because the step about talking about it's happening right now, and the next step for all of us is to think about how we can put it into motion.
That's great. Cheryl, Alice, let me give you a opportunity to get in here.
Well, I just asked the chat room if there are any people out there that has their school, does their school have a way to recognize student voice? So we'll see if we can get any information from them. But I did not get to see a lot of